Look at that. Bang on time, despite the time change. And we have Hannah with us today, which is great. Hannah, the District Herbalist from Lincoln, Lincolnshire. And I was supposed to be in New York today. Oh, I am Garrett Quayle, author of Botanical Shakespeare. And today we're going to be talking about saffron, because it's Pie Day. So first of all, Ohio gozaimasu. Oh, remember, I want you to activate the O for the vagus nerve, which gets the head and the heart connected and the body working better. And then breathing, but crushing and sniffing while you're breathing. Now, okay, so I didn't have somebody water the rosemary while I was on my road trip to Florida. So the rosemary plant may have gone the way of the natural course, although is it natural? There's so much beautiful flowering rosemary outside if you can see it, if you have a big bush somewhere. Anyway, but you can still crush and sniff dried rosemary. And I was reading this week about the people with COVID, who'd gotten COVID, who lost their sense of smell. And I don't know, I haven't gotten to the point where if you can get it back. But, you know, we already know that scent is connected so strongly with memory. So if you're trying to remember something, if you're working on a project or a paper or anything to memorize, sniff rosemary while you're working on it. Rosemary, that's for remembrance. That is what Ophelia says in Hamlet. But also it helps all kinds of hypothalamus and systems of the body, which that time change is getting me, which I have been saying all along. You know, we do things for pleasure, but they're also good for us, and pleasure is good for us. But also, this is just a way to clear the brain fog and get the system working with the deep breath and get the voice working like that. And so then you've got, like, in the morning or whenever you begin, which is what Ohio gozaimasu is about, all systems are go. And we just had a new moon, and so it's another sort of new year situation, and we're moving into a kind of a lovey-dovey connectedness thing. And I hope that's true, because I have seen, it's been an extraordinary year. This is my anniversary of the lockdown. I was with my mother in trying to enroll her in a physiotherapy thing, and down in Florida last year, and I got locked down in an ALF. So that was fascinating, and why I say, you know, we want to keep as healthy as we can, keep our sovereignty, keep our agency, take responsibility, and that's all being a grown-up is, ability to respond. So, but you can still be tired, and you can do all kinds of other stuff. Yes, they have, and they don't change for them until I think a couple weeks later, and there's a big discussion about whether to get rid of daylight savings time. I haven't really looked into the argument yet. But there's the whole, you know, Julian and Gregorian calendar situation, and there was a lot of resistance to that back in 1582, you know. So anyway, we're going to be talking about saffron today. And saffron was an imported spice initially, and it comes from crocuses, which is an early spring flower. And if you see the little threads inside the crocus, so crocus as a spring flower was pretty common, but the saffron threads, you know, getting them out and not mushing them, but highly used for dye because the color is so strong. So Queen Elizabeth's resplendent red hair, when that started to change, she used saffron before she moved on to wigs, and so did everybody else, just like people buy celebrity stuff all the time. Kate Middleton, Meghan Markle, throwing a little controversy in there. The Kardashians, people like that, everybody goes out and buys a dress if they wear it and they like it, or shoes or a hat or whatever. So everybody was dyeing their hair like Queen Elizabeth's hair with saffron. And so that was one use. But in The Winter's Tale, the clown or the shepherd's son says, I need to get some saffron to color the Warden pies. Oh, it's Pie Day. I did say it's Pie Day. So pi is 3.14, and some people have there's, I think, competitions to memorize the number all the way out, the decimal. And it's Einstein's birthday, which is one way that we know that God, or whatever you call that, the big umbrella, I often call it, the BU, is has a sense of humor. So anyway, so saffron, we learned from Francine Segan, the author of Shakespeare's Kitchen, who gave a great talk the other day, and I've known her for a long time. I've had her come to conferences and organizations of mine to speak. She's a wonderful speaker, and she was talking about the same quote. And that's not the line of the week, but you could learn it. I must have some saffron to color the Warden pies. What's a Warden pie? For a guy in prison? No. Although somebody just did a fantastic encapsulation of Two Noble Kinsmen and the Jailer's Daughter and all that stuff. Finishing Shakespeare. That's who did it. So go ahead and take a look at their summary of Two Noble Kinsmen. Anyway, saffron is in 4 plays, and saffron was so prized that people started growing it everywhere, just the same way that James I bought all these mulberries to make a mint in the silk trade, but he bought the wrong color mulberries. And silkworms only, I think, like white mulberries, and he bought black mulberries, or the other way around. I have to look in my own book. But anyway, so I made a saffron pie. Oh, Francine was saying they loved coloring things, and 2 of the quotes about saffron are about the color. The other one is LeFou in All's Well That Ends Well, about a villainous saffron, and people got in fights about this stuff. And there was a area just outside of London called Saffron Walden, and there's a lot of areas around Camden that the streets are named Saffron something because they were growing saffron fields there as well. Anyway, I made the saffron pie, and Hannah and I decided to do saffron and crocus last week before I realized that it was Pie Day today. So that's another just happy accident. Anyway, this is the worst pie in history. It's gonna taste terrible. It looks okay, but honestly, looks are deceiving, and I'm sure it will just be disgusting. I tried to dye the dough, so I only had frozen pie crust dough, so I put it in a bath of saffron in a bowl, and it didn't just defrost, it got gooey, and then I had to just mash these little chunks of the dough. But the lesson in this is they didn't waste anything then. Nowadays we go, just throw it away and start over. But they didn't. They couldn't. The stuff that they had was prized. They appreciated it. You had to make it work. So I had to make it work, and I had some crystallized ginger left over in a bag because I never throw anything away, which is because I think I might need it at some point, and I did. And so I put that in there. You can see a little bit of the crystallized ginger on the top and the sugar that came with it. But honestly, now I have rosemary all over my shirt. I think it's going to be gross. You know what? Well, a little whipped cream and ice cream, that should fix that pretty well. So I'm going to bring Hannah on, and we're going to discuss saffron today. Ohio gozaimasu, Hannah. Hi. So, crocuses. Do you guys have any crocuses up yet over there?
Yeah, I've not actually seen any myself, I have to admit. I've not really been anywhere that's likely to sort of have some growing, but I think there are some at the moment. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, inside the crocus, as I was pointing out, are the saffron threads. So I just noticed this Dr. Daniel Amen, who had these PBS specials for a long time on the brain, has a whole website, and you probably don't know who he is, but they keep offering, like the computer hears you, I'm sure of that. And now I get these things for supplements. Happy Saffron Plus. So,
okay. Yeah, okay. Well, the thing is you've probably spoken about this already, but about the cost of saffron and why it's so expensive.
Elaborate.
It is the most expensive spice in the world, and it's one of the reasons why it is most expensive is because I've had to write this down because I'm not good at remembering figures, that it takes 50,000 to 75,000 flowers to collect 1 pound's worth or 450 grams worth of saffron. So it's expensive, you know, it's not something to be, you know, taken lightly. And in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, where it's perhaps more commonly used, we don't really use it in sort of Western herbal medicine, for want of a better phrase. But in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, a typical dose is 1 to 5 strands, which is pretty expensive for one dose. So I mean, like everything that we talk about every Sunday. I mean, it has a lot of uses. So what was that thing being marketed for? A happy herb, was it?
Yeah, and brain health. And I think I left it in the kitchen. I'm going to actually, when you start talking about saffron again, I'm going to go get my saffron honey. I got saffron infused honey, which I showed a couple of weeks ago, and it's touted for weight loss. And I actually was taking the honey. As I said, it's a great thing to take before you go to bed. If you're hungry and you don't want to weigh your body down with food, you can just take a teaspoon of honey or a tablespoon of honey. And with the saffron, and I saw results in the morning. And I also have the saffron threads in these tiny little packages. Even now, it's still expensive. It's not, because of our life, it's not so hard to get, but it's still, you'll pay a lot of money for these tiny little strands of saffron that are in the center of the flower. And I think, as you mentioned, getting these things, getting these little strands out of the center of the flower, whose job is that? And what color are their fingers permanently? You know?
Yeah, I mean, they degrade pretty. Saffron, so it's the stigmas that are collected, those 3 little stigmas in each flower, and they degrade pretty quickly. So they have to be sort of dried kind of within minutes, really. So it's a really quite a delicate and quite sort of finely tuned process. But I mean, saffron, like a lot of the spices, it's warming. And so with anything that's warming, it's going to be stimulating. So in terms of
that, I'm just going to go get the saffron. So tell them.
Great. Okay. So in terms of it being stimulating, it's traditionally been used as a circulatory stimulant, and so it encourages blood flow. And it has also been shown in through research to increase hemoglobin levels. So can be used to kind of mitigate some of the side effects of anemia. And then, in terms of its other kind of stimulating properties, it does have a use in reproductive medicines. So it can be used to for people that have very scant menstrual periods. It can be useful to help bring on a period, and it can also help to because of its stimulating blood flow qualities, can help to take down menstrual pain as well. So it's got a really nice kind of stimulating action there. But it's in terms of that, sort of going back to what we were talking about a few weeks ago, it's also certainly seen in Ayurvedic medicine as something that can be employed for helping to improve fertility, but also as an aphrodisiac.
Well, yes, I think that's one of the reasons that they colored a lot of the food with it, or used it with a lot of the food. But so many spices are considered an aphrodisiac, which, by the way, comes from Aphrodite, goddess of love. So, in case you didn't know that, but you probably did. Anyway, so, yeah, I can't find it's in a teeny tiny plastic envelope, so of course I can't find it when I need it. But I did find the saffron honey. So I can't imagine me doing this myself. I would have to get so many tiny packets of saffron to infuse the honey. What do you think? Like,
Not necessarily, because it's a little bit like turmeric. You don't really need a lot for it to have a big effect. So, I mean, even only, in that sort of small amount of honey, you would probably, to make it, I mean, it's my guess you would maybe only need like half a strand or a strand to get that nice colour through it. Because, I mean, in cooking, you only ever put, maybe a strand or two at the most in, paella, if you're cooking paella or something like that. So I don't think it would take that much.
Well, I bought 2 packets of the saffron for this pie, and I used the whole packet, and the color is a very yellow, and you think, why is that better than a natural color for a pear pie? But I guess just the extra, going a little extra to make it a color, and also pear pies actually come out a bit gray, so perhaps because of that. Francine Segan was talking about how much they put into, obviously, royal affairs or banquets or anybody who's having a high-powered dinner party. Every course had to delight the senses. Isn't that fantastic? It's the same thing we talked about with poetry and writing and all that stuff, is learning through delight. Everything had to be delightful. And when you think about that, full of light. And spring is full of light, and when the light comes back. So the line of the week, and Hannah, this is for you too. Now 'tis the spring, and weeds are shallow rooted. And that's from Henry VI, part 2. And I liked it because now is the spring, and weeds are shallow rooted means that it's a good time for clearing out what's not working in your life. It's a good decluttering. It's a sort of a decluttering line, because you're going to pull the weeds because they haven't taken a deep root. And you don't want the things, although in other contexts I often defend weeds, but in this situation, weeds are shallow rooted. So pull them out, bring in the light, welcome spring. Let's see what this new year has to bring for us, our new COVID year. Let in the light, folks, and get some saffron and experiment with it. I'm not going to suggest that you color your hair with it, because God knows. But that would be interesting if I could find a hair coloring recipe with saffron. All right. Lots of love. Thank you so much, Hannah. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.